Joe, you're on mute.
I don't know why I keep on doing that. And it looks very noobish when I do that. So I had this excellent intro, which can we like cut? Can we like stop this stream and then restart? You know what, guys? You get the picture. I was putting up, please subscribe, please like. That's all I was saying. We will be back in 2 weeks' time to chat about Android versus iOS or Samsung versus Apple. So please tune in for that one. I believe it's already out there. So yeah, and then if you're interested, please consider joining the Telegram group or channel, rather. You get all the updates of upcoming shows. And you guys saw the intro at the beginning of the show. Yes, the good news, I am doing my one-man show and I'm filming it on the 18th of December. If you're in the Cape Town area, please go buy tickets. Tickets link is in the description below. Okay, with all that being said, finally, Jannie, how are you?
I'm doing good, Joe. And this has been one of the topics I think that we spoke about like 2 months ago, and it's been time. So it's been exciting. I've been looking forward to us talking about this.
Yes, well, I mean, especially because you'll be talking pretty much about yourself, being elderly and all. So,
Thank you, Joe. This is just the light reflecting off my beard. It's not great.
all right, so why don't we actually define now? Because let me also say this, when we say elderly, we don't mean to be rude. We're not here to bash on old people. We're hoping that through this stream, we'll actually give maybe your grandmother, your grandfather, and Jannie will explain the ages that we're talking to in the moment. But anyone that falls within that age category, maybe some help and some advice, and also some advice to the young people out there, about maybe don't be so angry when Grandpa says, "Hey, can you send this email for me, son? Just remind me one more time. What's the Wi-Fi password, son? I need to remember." Just patience. Anyway, Jannie, when we talk about elderly, who are we talking about?
So, and this is a good question, Joe, because what does elderly mean? Because I actually went and searched for the word in the dictionary online, and it came up in between two words. The one just meant like, you know, very old people, and the other word kind of like said people past their midlife. Now, I don't know what that means, but that's also not, I think, where I wanted to aim this discussion. I think let's just touch around the breakdown of age. And everybody has heard these terms called like baby boomers and Generation X and Generation Y or millennials, Generation Z. Let's touch on that, I think. For me, baby boomers is kind of like the age at where I'm aiming this discussion at. And baby boomers is anybody that was born between 1946 and 1964. So, it's anybody that's currently, 55, 56 to 75 years old about, give or take my quick maths. So, um, that's where I want to aim that at. Now, Generation X, let's just go through this quick. Generation X, that's pretty much everybody that's born, or anybody that's born between 1965 and 1980 about. Okay, so people between their 40s and 55. And Generation Y, which is the year that, or the generation that I was born in, is 1981 to about 1995, 96, somewhere there, kind of just before the whole .com thing, the Y2K thing, and all of that. And that's anybody that's currently between 25 to 40 years old, typically. So yeah, and then Generation Z, guys, that's everybody from 1997 upwards up to like 2015. And I think everybody after 2015 is like referred to now as Generation C or something. I can't really remember, but it doesn't really matter because for me, the discussion today is really around baby boomers. And, everybody that's like, let's say, between 55 and 75, somewhere there, give or take a few years. Now, earlier on, Joe, when we spoke about it, you actually said something that for the first time resonated with me. No, not resonated with me. For the first time, actually made sense to me as to why baby boomers are called baby boomers. And that for me was interesting.
It is a history thing.
Yeah,
I don't want to
welcome
misquote what we read, though, because what you read was perfect. It's basically I think it was between World War One and World War Two, or it was after World War Two, when things were going really well and people were buying houses and people were getting married and the economy was on the up and up. People were having a really good time in their private lives, put it that way. And a lot of people, there was like a population spike. And the baby boomers are the result of that population spike. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, that uptick in the birth rate post like World War II. And let's just step back. I don't know how many people know this, but what came before baby boomers? So if we take one generation before baby boomers, so the parents of the baby boomers,
Adult
is
boomers.
the silent adult boomers. So the silent generation. So that's 1925 to about 1945. And again, give or take 2 or 3 years towards the end of that. And those were the fathers and the mothers, like I say, of the baby boomers. And that's a very important time within, I think, our generation. Because they shaped quite a bit of the 20th century in terms of pop culture, rock musicians, filmmakers, television legends, whatever. There's quite a bit of that. And then before that, so anybody born before 1924, 1925, that's just called the greatest generation, or the GI generation. And then that's everybody older than that, I suppose, to the beginning of time. So interesting enough, though, from the silent generation, there was no American presidents, which was interesting. So there was no American president ever served between 1925 and 1945, just as a interesting thing. There was presidents before that, so there was the Kennedys and whatever, 1917, Bush, 1901, and
brush up on my American
1924. So
history.
and then baby boomers, Clinton. So yeah, I think let's frame the elderly as, the baby boomers. So, between 55 and let's say 75 years old, give or take somewhere there. And that for me should be, the point of departure for this. But also we spoke about tech. So we are saying tech and the elderly. So when we talk about tech, what tech are we talking about? And, we've had a couple of discussions now around technology and all kind of cool things and whatever. But for me, in this case, there's kind of like 2 points that I want to touch on. On the one side, it is how the baby boomer generation, or however words, and we might interchange this, baby boomers, our seniors, senior citizens, retirees or pensioners, those words, when I use those words, or when we use those words, we really do mean, 55 to 75, somewhere there. But how are they using tech today? Is it like, your grandmother using Facebook? Or are we talking about smart technology? Are we talking about, the advancements in like smartwatches and other smart technologies, and how that might also, influence or improve the quality of life of the elderly?
Absolutely. Now, let's get into I think a good topic to start at, because I'm hoping that some elderly baby boomers, pensioners might watch this. And this is something that I know a lot of the young generation may know about already. But I've heard stories, I still get these emails every now and again in my inbox. Phishing. Now, let's define phishing. Not phishing as in like, catching a fish. I mean phishing as in
PHI.
PHI. Yeah, phishing. Do you have a definition for that?
Yeah, so phishing, rather than let me giving it my free Jannie version of it, phishing is essentially that fraudulent attempt to obtain sensitive information from somebody. Now, sensitive information could be anything. It could be usernames and passwords. It could be, social security information, ID, anything that would personally identify you, and that could be used to, either steal your identity. Identity theft is a very, very common thing today, even still. So, and phishing is the act of that. Now, something else is something called social engineering. So that is a term that I think got probably most of its attention through a hacker. That's name now slipped me. Kevin Mitnick. And Kevin Mitnick wrote a couple of books in the 80s. Well, actually, no, later on, because he got imprisoned and he couldn't write the books and he couldn't share that until it deemed that the technology that he hacked and whatever, that life has surpassed that and there's no risk to him writing the books and telling the story anymore. But Kevin Mitnick started this whole social engineering thing, and that was that act of hacking a human. That is me gaining your trust so that you would willingly offer up the information that I want. And whether that is me getting access into a building or me getting access to your bank account detail, that's essentially what social engineering is. But, phishing is the cybercrime version of it, whereas social engineering is more, it could be abused in any way. I mean, you could social engineer your wife, for instance, Joe. I'm not saying you should, but you could. So phishing is the cybercrime version of that. And that is very important, because what is the first thing that you do when you sign up for anything online, besides entering your email address?
You give your name, sometimes your credit card.
Yeah, and your password.
And your password, yeah.
And passwords is hard to remember. Now, I know we have cool technology today, like on our iPhones and stuff, that just, put your face and unlocks and whatever. But for the most part, not all the equipment that people use has that. And so what do you do for your grandmother when you set her up on Facebook, or even your mother or your father or whoever? When you set them up on Facebook, is use the email address, which has a password, by the way. Now you use a new password for that. So what do? You use the same password that grandma used, because she remembers password 123. That's the easy one, because she also wrote it down on a yellow sticky note and she put it next to her screen, along with all of our other passwords. So there already is bad practice that we are, continuing because of passwords and whatever. So very important that, their passwords and things are protected. But I want to get to the next point that is them willingly giving that information up. So we've all received that email where it tells you, there was something weird on your bank account and you need to change your PIN with immediate effect. And that mail looks as legitimate as possible. And there's a couple of telltales that not everybody will be able to pick up at, a glance to see, that this is actually fake, or that this is a scam or a phishing attempt or whatever. So that's already a big risk for us. So there's an element, obviously, of education and educating everybody, but in this context, educating our parents, educating our grandparents, and the elderly in this case, about what to look out for that, because there's an inherent element of trust there. I certainly grew up in a time where I know my parents trusted people. Whereas today in our lives, Joe, we don't trust everybody we meet. It's different.
Yeah.
Now, something I do need to also just state, and we'll deal on that a little bit later, we spoke about, baby boomers and Gen X and Gen Y and Gen Z and whatever, and those are time frames in time with, saying you are between 55 or 75 years old or whatever. But it doesn't matter. You are born in a particular time, in that specific time or generation, because of what technology was at the time. I mean, in the late 70s, computers, personal computers, these things started, featuring, which is where Generation X kind of like started, getting access or influenced by computers, etc. But it doesn't matter if you are saying now, okay, you are 40 years old, and you look at it 40 years from now and you're 40 years old. It's two different things, because 40 years from now, that person would be a generation something else. It won't be Gen X. So at the time when the baby boomers grew up, that was at a time where I think trust was easily given, which is not something that we do today.
I
Today,
don't
for
know if
me,
it
I think
was.
still.
Sorry, I'm going to interject there. I'll
No,
give
go
you
for it.
my opinion on that. But first, let me also address Herman Ruiz. Thank you so much for the 140 Rand super chat. Thank you so much for that. It's greatly appreciated. And he says, okay, I have nothing to say. Man of many words. So, what you're saying now, yeah, we were trusting back in the day. We were. But that's because we didn't have all this stuff. This was like all these things like phishing now and all that stuff that came later when internet was invented and computers and stuff like that. Never heard of that stuff. So there were scammers, but they were scammers in the sense of like I'm gonna con you to buy a share in something that doesn't exist, and
Pyramid
you'll get
schemes or
yeah
nonsense.
you'll get a return on investment, that kind of thing. So I don't think in my opinion, I don't think it's necessarily that they were more trusting. I think it's just that they don't know. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was different though. So today, when your doorbell rings, do you just open the door?
Yes. No, I don't. I don't.
If it's take a lot, I open the door, especially if I can track them and I know that they're here. So, but in our younger years, and it was just in general, because I'm generalizing in this. I'm not saying all people between 55 and 75 is trusting. I'm just saying that I think, for the most part, people between 55 and 75 grew up in a time where trust was easily given, is more easily given than what it is today. And the problem is, if that continued, you're dealing with a 20 or 30% of people that would easily give their trust is, oh, I got a mail from the bank account. Because what happens is the guys are getting really good at this. Nothing on the internet is necessarily protected or encrypted and unable to be seen by any prying eyes. And there's so many other nonsense going around. Like if you buy a new car and you need insurance on it, the one insurance company, there's somebody leaking out all of that information into, 20 different directions. The next moment, next week, you're getting insurance quotes from companies you've never even heard about before. So how did they get your information? I mean, all that stuff kind of like, just gets shared. So the moment you're doing something in life, especially when just retiring now and you're buying that, motorhome or that boat or that caravan or whatever that you wanted, and you're doing something specifically in life, it's easy for you to be phished or conned in that sense, because you're getting mails from the bank, so you don't have your security hat on and you're not looking at everything in detail possibly, and you can easily make a mistake, but any one of us can, But the problem is we are dealing with something where you easily give away that trust. Now you get that mail, your bank account has something, you need to change your PIN. And I know, and I've had personal experience, not in my family, personal experience with work colleagues or whatever, that told me, hey, I got this mail that said I need to change my PIN. I changed my PIN, but it's not allowing me to log in. Is there something wrong with my internet banking? And then they log a call to
You're
say, hey, the
fucked.
internet banking isn't working.
That's what
There
happened.
you go. It's like immediately now you need to start phoning the bank. Say, hey, I logged in, I gave my PIN, I gave all this, and these things happen. It's harder now because you have multi-factor authentication and all kinds of things with banking stuff, but still, you gave away trust easily. That's something that I think we needed to deal with is us, younger generation, we need to educate a little bit around that. Like in my family group, we have a family WhatsApp group, whatever, or email group, doesn't really matter. But when we see certain things like that, we share it.
Mm.
There was the Netflix one the other day. Now, I don't know how many people signs up for Netflix and whatever, but there was a Netflix one the other day that was telling you there was a problem with your Netflix subscription, your credit card was being weird, and you need to log in to fix it. So what do? You click on the mail, you click on the Netflix icon, because they used the Netflix icon, but it's not really Netflix. And you enter your credit card details in a site that looks like Netflix, but it's not, because you don't know about it, So there's little things you can do by saying, okay, cool, well, it tells me to change my password. Don't click on that link. Go to Netflix, go to a new browser, type in www.netflix.com, enter, .co.za, whatever, log in, and check if your account is good. And if you then still question it, click on the support button or something, but don't click on those links, So that's very important, because when you don't know, you might just click on those things. And we're also dealing with a bit of a risk, and we can touch on that, and I can touch on a closing point. But when I've seen other people or the elderly being scared at technology and being scared that they do something wrong, afraid, so there's that as well. So now, okay, now this happens, so now I need to click on this, and because there's something wrong with my account, so they try and click on it because they're scared, because it's so easy to influence them with some other stuff. So
yeah, I had a recent experience also with phishing, but funny enough, I can't remember if it was money related, but basically, I got an email from Standard Bank, and I do have an account with Standard Bank. And it, like you said, it looked like Standard Bank. Even the email, because usually that's usually a telltale sign, is if you have an email that says Joshua at 157ggg5sign.live.co.com, it's a fake account. Scratch it, throw that email away in the bin. It's a phishing account. But this email actually had like Joshua at standardbank.co.za. And what we found out, so they were asking for my social security number. And I am American, so obviously I have a social security number. And that is very private. Like, that is something that you don't get asked about quite a lot in your daily life, especially in South Africa. So I can't remember exactly why they needed the social security number. It was something about verifying, I don't know what. And I was like, okay, this is weird because it seems legit. The email is from an actual Standard Bank website. So what we had found out, because now instead of replying to that email or anything like that, I contacted Standard Bank on their support line and I said, look, I got this email. It looks legit, but like it's weird that you guys are asking me for my social security number because you shouldn't need that at any time. I have a South African passport. I have a South African ID. It doesn't make sense. So when they looked into it, they realized that email was stolen. Someone had stolen.
Oh, the account.
Yeah, someone had stolen that account, and the person who had it previously was let go from Standard Bank.
And the account was never closed or deleted or whatever, so the account was still active and somebody was using it. Oh, wow, that's interesting.
And they asked to send the number that the account was using, because obviously at the end in the signature they had a number that you can contact, and we gave the number and they said no, it's not on our records. They were just using the name Joshua, but the last name was different. So it was like Joshua Pillay or whatever, and they're like, no, Joshua used to belong to, or that email used to belong to a Joshua, but it's not the same Joshua. So obviously they changed the surname, they changed the phone number, and they were phishing in that way. So that's how extensive these guys can go to trying to get some of your information. How they knew that I had an American social security number, or that I was American, is still beyond me. The support said that maybe it was like this is what phishing is. They kind of just send like a lot of emails to many different emails and hope for the best that someone will get back to
like
them.
1%.
Yeah. So
The other risk as well, though, and that's an interesting point, Joe, is the fact that an account was compromised within the bank. My question then is, did they have access only to the email, this person? if they had access to get into email, and usually how these things work, and I don't want to digress too much, but usually how this works is your email password is also the same as your VPN password, is the same as your Skype password, the same as everything, because these things are all authenticated by a single authentication mechanism. And 9 out of 10 times, once you log into one thing, it's called single sign-on, it actually links you in, logs you onto everything else within the work context. So if that person had enough information to figure that out, they might have actually had access to some banking systems and whatever. So interesting. Well done for picking up that data be talking about at work and whatever, to say, guys, this is getting very, very close to.
Yeah, this was recent too. This was like over the lockdown. So this was a recent thing.
Yeah.
And again, it's like you said, like I'm not going to lie, I did go into panic mode for like the first hour. I was like, because I can remember it was something that they needed and it sounded important. And then I'm like, I told my wife, and I'm like, something just doesn't sound, it's not sitting well with me. Why would they need my social security number? Like, yes, they explained like, oh, we need to like do X, Y, and Z, but it was like, because we picked up that you're not from here and blah, blah, blah. But again, they have my ID. Like, I use my South African ID to open an account in South Africa. So yeah, happy to share that story. I hope that helps some of you out there to explain how elaborate some of these hoaxes are, and don't just fall for anything. And you get it a lot with anybody that's doing internet banking. If you use the apps, they will constantly tell you, we never ask for your password or any identification through email or the app. It's always in person. So remember that. If you get an email from any bank that says, oh, we need you to verify your email and your password, don't do it. Just don't. Rather call, like Jannie said, and find out if it's real, which most of the time you'll find out it was just a scam.
Joe, I want to touch on something quickly. I see Tony Nagi's comment. That's interesting. That's the Newton's law of gravitation. Interesting password.
No, that's actually not a bad password.
Very cool.
I would recommend people to use that password.
So before we step back, Joe, I do want to step back to some of the positives around how tech has affected the elderly, and then I also want to talk a little bit around some statistics and stuff. But
sure,
2 horror stories, if I can call it horror stories, essentially is, or just a general horror story, as I've heard of people talk about what they've had to do to make tech easier for somebody else in their life, an elderly person in their life, a baby boomer or whatever. One of the worst ones I've heard is somebody that actually had to cut off the buttons of the remote, like cut them out so that certain buttons aren't, sticking out, and then mark the ones that's important, like volume and, power button or whatever, mark them in like white or something, like typics them to make it white, just so that, grandma, and I'm teasing, sorry guys for using grandma, but hey grandma, you only need to worry about these 5 buttons and they're all white. And, that's horrible. I know remote controls can get very complicated, but that's horrible. And a second story to that, and that's kind of like where I want to get to as well, is I've heard of somebody that was using sticky notes and made little sticky notes on the TV. So like when the TV comes up and it shows the list, well, that particular TV, it shows the list of like all the sources, like, HDMI 1, HDMI 2, whatever. And then depending on where the DSTV decoder or whatever is plugged in, that's the one that you need to select. And although that worked, that's also bad in a way, because now you're ready, and I can just imagine like this picture of like an elderly person, like squinting their eyes with the remote, pointing it at the TV like it's a lightsaber, and then pressing that button fast enough, because that screen goes away after 5 seconds, so it doesn't really help by, putting a visual cue like that down. And I'm not saying it's bad. I mean, I'm just saying I've just heard of some interesting stories, not quite horror stories, I suppose, but of the extent that people would go to, us younger people would go to try and make life easier for an elder person. So very bad that you have to cut off TV remotes and all kinds of things. But I think let's step to something a bit more positive, and I'm keen to also get your thoughts. But what or how do you think has tech affected the elderly from a quality of life perspective and contributing towards quality of life? I certainly think that, just the launch of like applications and smartphones and all of those things, and that can also become complicated, but like just some of the apps that's around, like delivery apps, 6060 and Uber or Uber Eats, etc. Uber itself, like from a e-hailing perspective, that I think has definitely added to a bit of quality of life. There's also the communication and participation component when it comes to social life. I'm not saying social media, I'm saying social life, in the sense, there is those cases where older people are starting to feel neglected or alone or whatever. And social media, I don't want to use that word social media, but applications like Facebook or TikTok or WhatsApp or whatever is a way for them to get insight into their children's life or family member or people that's, separated, living abroad or, whatever the case may be. So there's been some really cool advancements, I think, for me there around the adoption of tech. And there's a statistic that I read, which I read, that I don't know how true it is, but it's still interesting though, is that the study showed that social media or the social life inclusion applications has had a positive impact on seniors' lives, potentially reducing the risk of depression by up to 33%. So that sounds like a low stat, but that's 33% of people that might just not be, depressed. I'm not saying everybody go out and go and get Facebook accounts now. We should still proceed with caution when it comes to Facebook and all of those things. And we touched on these things a little bit earlier with all the things that social media can do, because, again, it's an avenue for them to be exploited in one way or another. Targeted ads, etc. But for me, I think these apps have added a bit of quality of life. And there's an example that I want to use, which is a personal example. So a couple of months back, we bought smartwatches for my parents. And so they are active. They walk, every day, whatever, and they track them on their phones and things like that, which is great. But the smartwatch, you don't always have your phone with you. So it's not something that you always carry on you, and you can, have a bit of this gamification by seeing who walked the furthest, or who did the most steps or whatever. So we got the smartwatches, and it tracks their steps and their sleep patterns and all kinds of things. And that became really interesting on how they started to just embrace that, to pick up on their sleep patterns, like how they are sleeping. Should they do something about that? Like, are you going through your stages of sleep? Is it 4 or 5 stages? 5 stages of sleep. Actively walking. Are they, doing enough steps? Setting themselves some targets to do a certain amount of steps a day. That for me is really cool. How that, I think, has improved on their life, because it kind of became a bit of a motivation for them, I think. But then there's tons of other cool apps as well, like exercise trackers, step trackers, whatever. That you take your pills, pill trackers, whatever. But then, smartwatch technology, the medical tracking of that, those are all really good. Reading, Kindle, Audible. So there's so many technologies that you kind of take for granted today that I think elderly could still enjoy, because, somebody that likes reading, and I know there's purists that wants a book and that wants the smell of a book and whatever, but what if you don't have access to books? Nobody to take you. Delivery not always an issue. Physical books, whatever. There's these apps out that definitely, in my mind, adds to quality of life. Like I'm saying, Kindle, Audible, whatever. So I still think that's definitely a positive.
I disagree with everything. I think elderly should not touch technology. I think it's beyond them. No, I'm kidding. I was feeling
really worried now.
No, there's definitely, obviously, I mean, I look at my mom, right? So she sometimes watches the show, and hi, mom, if you're watching. And
Hi, Joe.
she's one of the few, like, she's old. She won't like it if I divulge her age on the internet, but suffice it to say, she's, how do I put this? I will say that she's between the ages of 50 and 80. So she's within
Okay.
that age group, and she's very technologically inclined. Like she'll come to me and show me like what she's gotten a new like she's gotten a new tablet and she's doing this and that. She loves new tech. She loves the new phones. She loves all this stuff. Um, and that tech has helped her stay in touch with her sister in England, with family in Egypt and friends in Egypt, and they have conversations, they Skype, they WhatsApp, especially during the lockdown. She was able to stay in touch with a lot of her friends and stuff like that. So that, which obviously helped with her morale, making her feel not alone, when she couldn't see me or she couldn't
Included,
see
yeah.
family. Yeah. Um, so tech, yes, absolutely, can definitely be great for elderly people, and of course the medical side of it. All these technological advances in medicine, and I don't mean just the new drugs out there that can combat a sickness. I'm talking about pacemakers. I'm talking about if you need a new hip, if you need all that stuff. Surgery has really helped to help those that are older stay alive longer and stay on this earth longer, to enjoy family time and enjoy being around their grandchildren and stuff like that. I think my thing is with elderly, and I think someone mentioned it earlier in the chats. When it comes to people who are younger, and your grandmother or your grandfather comes to you and um, hey mom or hey son or grandson or whatever, can you? I forgot my password. Can you help me? Get back into Facebook or whatever. We just need to be patient, with elders, because they grew up at a time when this didn't exist. This really is like, you give an elderly person the most advanced cell phone on the market today, they will be scared of it because they don't understand it in its. They understand that we can call people, we can communicate with people, but there's a lot of it that they don't understand. Like how do you make your phone do certain things and set it to do certain things, and when it doesn't do what they want it to do, they get frustrated, and it's just a matter of having patience with them and saying, "This is step one. This is step two." Now, I don't know if we're going to talk about this, but obviously, if your grandmother has Alzheimer's or something, then, well, I don't think there's a tech that can really help you with that. But um, I think that
Yeah.
for the most part, for those that are capable and willing to learn, just be patient with them. And that's something very important when it comes to PC, or like teaching them something on the computer and stuff like that. Um, I think yeah, we just need to have patience with them.
That's an important point, Joe. I want to touch on that, and I also want to touch on something else that you said around, you know, kind of like leaning towards the statistics and things. But before I touch on that, as you mentioned Alzheimer's now, and a little visual cue card came up. There's a very cool book I read last year called Moonwalking with Einstein. If anybody's like loves reading and whatever, um, very very cool book. It goes around a news reporter or a journalist probably a better word, that interviews brain athletes. These guys that is like the best in the world in terms of remembering stuff, like remembering the first, I don't know how many thousands uh, um, what do you call the number after a dot, like the decimals after like for pi, the 3.17, 127, whatever. Remembering all those things. So that was really, really cool. And this guy spent time with the number 6 and number 7 in the world, but then he also had the side story, which was, I think, his dad that had Alzheimer's and things. So really, really awesome around how the brain works and all those things. Really awesome book. It's called When Walking with Einstein. It's a book that I've had in my library for quite a long time that I've been wanting to read, and finally got around to it last year. But I do want to take a step back, Joe. You did speak about something that triggered this thought now around the statistics. So I know we don't like the World Health Organization at the moment, but from a statistics perspective, they did say that, or their prediction is that by the year 2050, the population of people that will be between 70 and 80, 60 and 79 years old, so let's say 60 and 80 years old, would have doubled. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And then I thought by myself as, Joe, me and you are in that category in 2050 because I'm 39 years old. Let's say I'm 40. But by the time it's 2050, I will be 70 years old. And you will be 60, give or take a year. So, we are part of that population that we are talking about now. We are part of a age bracket that we are talking about now. Now, before I step back a little bit, interestingly is, and I forgot to look up the stat, well, we spoke about it earlier, so while everybody from 60 to 79 years old, or let's say 60 to 80 years old, is going to double by 2050, people that's 80 years or older would be roughly 400 million people. That is an insane number. Now, I would love to know what the current rate of that number is, and I know when you mentioned now, like, hip replacement and pacemakers and things, I know that medical technology has advanced, and we have, all these preventative therapies and advanced medical care and better access to medical care, and there's a pull for anything and everything and whatever that makes us live longer. So I know we have all that. But when we started this conversation, we were talking about tech and the elderly, and we were talking about people being born between 1945 and 1965 somewhere, right? And that's fine. We can talk about that. But also 30 years from now, we will be that age. So the important thing here is it doesn't really matter what time we were born in. We're all going to get to some age eventually. But we are born in a different time, though. We are still going to be 70 years old someday. But we would have been born in a time where we had exposure to tech. And I was very lucky. I had exposure from tech since I was 3 years old or something. It's one of the oldest photos that I have, sitting in front of a Commodore 64. And I didn't show it on our retro gaming stream the other day. But that, I had exposure to tech then. So, I would love to know what I'm going to be like at 70. Am I going to be like your mom, loving tech and keeping up to abreast with stuff? Because that would be awesome. I would really hope that I am. Or am I going to be tired of tech and it'll be the same thing today? I won't be able to interact with the new Samsung Smart TV that you have to wave at for Netflix to go on, or Netflix 2.0 or whatever. So,
Jannie, you are like,
should we worry?
No, you're going to be that guy that's going to have another 10 screens in your room, coding with the one hand and hacking with the other hand. With
VR glasses,
with VR
Joe,
glasses,
VR glasses.
yeah. Like, come on, man. Like, there's no way you're not gonna. You love tech way too much. You want to tell me that you're a guy that started when he was 3 years old, building a computer, and when he reaches 70, that he's just gonna be like, you know what? I'm good. I think.
Maybe I'm tired of it.
No,
I don't know.
You must remember though, right? So, like, going in with this idea of yours, right? So, from in a few years, we're gonna be 80 years old, right? But we grew up with a section of technology, if I can put it that way, or a section of era of technology, if I can put it that way. So
Yeah, internet.
Yeah. But by the time we're 80, there's going to be new developments in this world, and we may not be able to keep up with all of it. I think you will more than I will. But there's going to be crap out there that you and I are going to be either scared of, we're going to be cautious to get involved. Again, I'll be more cautious than you will. I think you're gonna embrace it. Like you're gonna be like, oh my word, I can have an Iron Man den in my house. That's what I'm gonna work
A
towards. Whereas,
lightsaber.
yeah. Whereas me, I'm gonna be like, I don't know, I don't really trust the tech. However, if someone like you like debuts it and shows it and says like, oh, it's totally safe, then I'll embrace it. You know. So I think we will be. I think what I'm trying to get at is this is an interesting thought. Much like the 80-year-olds of today don't know a lot about tech because they grew up at a time when there was no internet, there was no social media.
TV wasn't there or whatever.
Yeah,
when they were kids.
Yeah, there wasn't any of this tech. We will be like them, but not as extreme, as I can put it that way. You know, there will be things that we don't know about. But I think we will be a more curious generation of 80, if that makes sense. That's my theory.
It does. And that is, I think, the point I was hoping we are going to ponder a little, because it only struck me when I read that statistic.
I had to read that comment.
I hope I'll be iOS half Iron Man, but yeah, that's fine. Half Apple, half Iron Man. Insane. I think it's just interesting though, is because it only struck me when I read the statistic, and it said that half the population, or not half, the population of today would have doubled by 2050 when you between 60 and 80 years old. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then I thought, but I will be 70 years old then. And then that to me was like, okay, what does that mean from a tech and elderly perspective? Because like you say, are we different? Because there are people today that is young, that is maybe, even Gen Z in a way, because we're Gen Y, we're the millennials.
I resent that.
Being a millennial?
Yes, I resent that.
Why?
I don't want to be a millennial. I'm not a millennial.
What do you want to be?
You
want to be a Gen Y?
At this point, Joe? I'd rather be a boomer at this point. So then the millennial is an insult to me. Millennials are to me a generation that are lost beyond belief. I'm happy with Gen Y.
No, because we are Gen Y. Gen Y, millennials, same term, interchangeable. Potatoes.
No,
okay? But I can understand that you don't want to be a millennial. Doesn't matter though. We grew up in this time between 1980 and 1995, which was awesome. Yes, Joe, you're looking at me funny.
Look, I do agree that like our years that we were spent our teen years and stuff, they were some of the most exciting times, especially when you look back at it. You were part of the first time a phone with a camera or a color screen ever came out. That was like the big what. But again, like our next generation will grow up with other things that are like, pretty soon they're gonna have the first hologram.
Yeah.
And
well, we have it today, but I've seen the guys have now these see-through TVs, which is like
a hologram. That's not a hologram.
Doesn't matter.
I'm talking about Star Wars hologram.
Matter.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I'm talking about. We had CRT, those old tube TVs at home.
Yes.
Okay. The one with the 3 sliders, the red, green, and blue slider, and no remote control, and everybody's TV was a Sony. Like we all had one of those. Then we got the flat screen versions. It was still a CRT, but it had a flat screen, and that was cool because that was the next best thing. And then we got plasma TVs, and then we got LCD. Was it LCD?
Yeah.
It's LCD, LED, and then all this AMOLED and
LSD.
ULED and all, all the new cool technology that we go and spend money on, and 8K and whatever. And that's all great. But in those little micro advancements, see-through TVs is a micro advancement. Would I go out and buy one today? No, it's not that cool. But it's micro advancements. So we are going to grow up with that, I think. But the thing is, though, is we do have younger people that is in the generation Y that is born, let's say, 1985 or 1987 somewhere, so they're in their late 20s, early 30s, that might not be as technically, what's the right word?
Technically literate.
Yeah, but I don't want to mean it in a bad way, but they might not necessarily know how to go and set up their own email, as an example. Does it matter? They don't know what an IP address is on their router. Does it matter? Doesn't matter. No. Because they don't need to know about SMTP servers and all kinds of weird things to set up their email. They go on their phone, they enter, say, I have a Gmail account. The thing's kind of like auto-configures because technology has advanced in some cases like that these things auto-configures itself and it starts following you. You get a new phone, you plug the one in, you plug the other one in. Apple is really, really good at it. It's kind of like, smooth experience. I think Samsung is also getting there with that. So, so does it matter? Does it matter that they don't know all the detail, but they are living in this time where tech exposure is there, the time of Netflix, the time instant gratification is a bad example, but the time of all these things where we have all these things to our access. So is the problem that we have today going to be the same as the problem we're going to have 30 years from now? I think no. I really do think no, and I really do hope no. What do we need to do today? You touched on it, and I think Laura Fry made the comment in chat earlier, is to say that we need to be patient. Yeah. I know it's really hard, and I'm one of the most impatient people in the world. Sometimes, most of the times. But
Reese, is he the most impatient?
Oh, she's going to bust me now. She's going to say yes. I know it. I called it. She's going to say yes. Ask her how I explained Wi-Fi to her yesterday. No, please don't go there, babe. So I understand the frustration, like I say. From their perspective, they're also scared. They are scared that they're going to do something wrong. They're scared that, things will blow up or whatever. I don't know. The one thing is we need to understand the frustration. We need to give them the confidence. And we need to take things slow. We need to explain things in an easy language that they can understand. Not because, and I'm sorry for saying, not because they're dumb. It's because they just didn't grow up with the terminologies that for me and you comes natural, maybe because of PS4 and Xbox and USB and all this nonsense. Doesn't matter. We need to just explain it in a different terminology. And most importantly, I think, when it comes to some of these technology things where it's questioned, we need to explain the value. Because I, again, really, really believe some of these technologies adds value to our lives, their lives, and it can improve the quality of life. And if technology can improve the quality of life of somebody, that for me is a win.
Well,
did Reese bust me in chat yet?
She said he really explained it very well. He used the pool and a tiny rock.
It worked. It worked.
Oh man, I agree with you, man. And yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. I think what can people take away from this episode? I think like what I would really like anybody that's watching this, and you've seen someone maybe, I don't know, not mistreat. I don't want to say mistreat, but maybe just lose patience with their grandparents or whatever, or just let them listen to this. Maybe that'll help them understand that people between the ages of 60 and above, like they didn't grow up with all this stuff, and it's over the past 20 years alone, we have seen such advancements in technology, And it's really escalated and like just like a snowball effect, just kept on going and going and going. Nowadays, every 6 months there's a new cell phone. Every 6 months there's a new TV. Just the other day, I was thinking of saving up for a 4K TV, then 8K comes out. It's like, oh my word, are we ever gonna, is it ever gonna stop? But here's something else I wanted to bring up to you. Don't you find it interesting that tech at the beginning was very durable? I saw someone saying in the chats, I think it was Gentle Inflatables, saying that, oh, the old tube, my favorite, or something along those lines. And it made me think, like, yeah, TVs back in the day, yeah, they were bulky and they were heavy and you had to really find space for them, but they were durable, man. Like, I'm not saying that if you took a baseball bat, it wouldn't break. Obviously, it would, but it still felt heavy duty. Whereas nowadays, tech, not so much.
Yeah. Um, and Joe, I think a lot of tech is like that. Not just tech, just a lot of things today has that. And we need to coin this term actually that you bring up. I don't know if we need to coin it just cell phone lifespan or something. I don't know. We can find a nice word for it. But things tend to only last 2 years, eh? Um, my parents own a tumble dryer and fridge and all kinds of things that is older than what I am, and it still works. Now,
Exactly.
yes, the question: do they need to replace it with brand shiny new silver things and whatever? It's no, it works. Why replace it? Constantly, my dad has in the last 2 months reminded me that some stuff can be fixed. Don't just replace it. Whereas we are growing up in this generation where if it's broken, don't fix it.
Buy a new one.
Just buy a new one.
Mm.
And interesting, that was a very, very cool line that our pastor or whatever used when me and my wife got married. And to say is that relationships goes through tough times and don't treat it like a piece of thing that breaks and you buy a new one, fix it. But anyway, that's very important because we bought a tumble dryer about 2 years ago and lo and behold, come to 18, 19, 20 months, this thing starts breaking bearings and all kinds of weird things. And it's 2 years old. And my parents have one Calvinator model, whatever, version one, that is 40 whatever years old, and it's nothing wrong with today. So that is very true. Tech is not designed to last long anymore. But let's bring it back to pure tech. There's a reason for that, I think, because times move on. As you know, you get, let's use iPhones as an example, or Samsung Galaxy, S3, S4, S5, then we skipped everything to S10, S20, S30, or the iPhone, 5, 6, 7, 8, iPhone X, iPhone 11, iPhone 12. These things are designed to meet the needs of the current times, and times move on. Things get more complicated, you know. That's why we have different Xboxes. That's why we have different TVs. You have, standard definition. You have HD. You have 4K. You have 8K. Technology is advancing, and these things need to keep up. So, unfortunately, it's true that tech does seem to have a short lifespan. It's a problem because it generates tons of e-waste, around the globe, and there's no real way of fixing that. Everybody has their own weird way of implementing it, but it's true. It's sad that, some things break and doesn't last as long anymore, but I think it's also the reality of the time that we live in, that, life is progressively becoming faster, bigger, better, more detail, more whatever. And,
Yeah.
tech needs to keep up with that, and this is tech's way of keeping up with it. It either ages gracefully or it breaks. I prefer that tech ages gracefully rather than breaking. It's not cool that stuff breaks, but yeah, that
Well,
is very sad but true.
do you want to take some questions very quickly? We're a bit over time, but we can take maybe one or two questions.
More than happy, yeah.
All right. So I saw a question here. I'm trying to look for it now. Sorry. But yeah, I feel like this was a really good conversation. I hope people learned something. and I hope people will be a little bit more patient with their elders, depending on what you define as elder.
Actually, elder is a nice word, Joe, because the elders always have that earned respect, don't
Yeah,
they? You
exactly.
know, like in Lord of the Rings somewhere, I saw there was Lord of the Rings discussion, but somewhere in the movies I know they refer to the elders, and the elders always have that earned respect. So, guys, respect your elders.
Exactly. Actually, there's not really any questions.
I like Reese's statement, though, is saying, I don't want to know how it works, I just want to know that it works.
Yes, I popped that
I
up
know,
earlier.
that's true.
Hey, Aim to be Amy is with us, so please go subscribe to her new channel, ladies and gentlemen. A brand new podcaster has joined the YouTube South Africa sphere, so please go check her out. She has some interesting chats coming up, and I will be on that channel soon, I think next week, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, go check her out. Thank you, Amy, for tuning in. And I wanted to bring this up. IZA says, okay, all products now are made not to last, because then there's another reason for you to upgrade. Things are only meant to last a little longer than the warranty, 3 years if it has 2-year warranty. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's unfortunately designed like that. So
Yeah.
we've seen it over the last couple of years. And I mean, it never used to be like that, because I know of a couple of Nokia 6310s that still works. So, I mean, you can only receive 20 SMSs, and there's no WhatsApp and no smart features to it. But, um, it was tech that was designed for a different era.
Mm.
Nokia 2110s or Nokia 60 whatever 30s weren't designed to be the cool thing now. It was designed to be a very purpose-built, very specific piece of technology at that point in time. Whereas now, this is becoming a bit of a social status, like, oh, do you have the new iPhone?
Yes.
Do you have the new Samsung, whatever? Do you have the new PS5?
All right.
So,
Well,
yeah, it's
we'll leave that conversation for 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks' time, we're going to be discussing iOS versus Android, or Apple versus Samsung. I like to say Apple versus Samsung. Yanni gets a bit of a fanny wallow when I say that. And and I just want to say, Venner Swindon saying, I want to bring this up. I think Yanni should start his own YouTube channel. Ladies and gentlemen, let me say it now. Yanni does have a YouTube channel. I do believe there's a link in the description below. But if there isn't, I will add it. Sorry, Yanni. But I want to
and it's
also
lazy.
I want to also say this. We are going to be uploading a video to his channel very soon, and it's a very exciting one. I don't want to say too much because I want to keep the news, exciting. But yes, very soon, Yanni will be uploading a video, which is desperately needed. So he does have his own channel. Please go check it out. And
Thanks for the shout out, Joe.
no problem, of course. Yeah. Rita saying, Rita, thank you so much for tuning in. If I'm not mistaken, you're all the way from the USA, so good luck today, and thank you for tuning in. Thank you to you and Yanni for the interesting stream tonight. You're most welcome, Rita. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you, Rita. Happy voting.
Happy voting. So, what I want to say as well, ladies and gentlemen, is yes, please share this with people who may need to hear some of this information, especially when it comes to the scams and the phishing. We really need to take care of our elders. And I've heard horror stories where pensions have been stolen, life savings has been stolen, and that robs future generations. Like, if your grandfather gets conned out of $1 million savings, because they were fished. That means you don't get that inheritance. You don't get that money that could have gone to you. Could have been there for a rainy day for the family. It's truly, truly sad. So we need to protect our elders when it comes to tech and be patient with them. I cannot stress that enough. Please be patient with them. And who knows? I think it's an interesting thought. Who knows where we will be when we are 80 years old? I still think Yanni might be half Iron Man and half iOS. Um, I think that's
As long as I have an Xbox 17, I'll be fine. So whatever the latest Xbox is at the time, I'll be happy.
maybe we should have a chat about the future of tech in general, because I've heard some crazy stuff that's happening that is projected for 2050, 2060, 2030 even, as soon as that. Stuff like being able to download your consciousness onto a hard drive and transfer it into a machine, which is scary stuff. Very, very, very scary stuff. So maybe we can do a bit of research and talk about that in a future stream. There's always going to be something to talk about with tech, and I love talking about this stuff with you, Jannie. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, a big debate coming up. Samsung versus iPhone. Which is better? I'm iPhone.
iPhone, but I don't know who we're going to argue with, Joe, because we're both in the same corner.
No, you like Android. You said so.
No, I don't. This is an iPhone. No, but it's still an interesting discussion. I think it's not about what's better or what's best. It's about the battle of the two technologies. So it's going to be a very cool chat.
No, you cannot say that, Jannie. You must choose a side.
I choose both sides.
Nah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for tuning in. For all the super chats, thank you so much. Please consider subscribing if you're new to my channel. Like I said, we have more chats like this coming up. Please also like the video if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to share it. If you really liked this content, please consider becoming a member. For as little as 10 Rand, you can become a member and support this channel. And if you want to follow me on social media, all my social media links are in the description below, so please go check that out. If you want up-to-date content or information on content, please check out the Telegram channel. The link is also in the description. And some exciting news, ladies and gentlemen. In December, 18th of December, I'll be filming my one-man show, stand-up comedy special. So please go buy tickets. If you're in the Cape Town area, I would love to see you there. Come have a laugh. Tickets are limited. The venue is very small. And of course, with social distancing, that makes it even smaller. So please go get tickets, or at least share, tell people. And I hope to see you there, 18th of December. Other than that, Jannie, do you have anything to say?
No, thank you, Joe. I think this was a very interesting chat. I think I will leave it with this. I don't want to see a digital divide with the younger and the older generations. So I think, like I said, guys, let's be patient. And to our elder generation or older generation, guys, don't be afraid of technology and don't be afraid to learn.
Sorry. I just found out Amy is rooting for Samsung. This is a problem.
I'm going to unsubscribe.
And on that bombshell, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Good night. If I don't see you at the next one, stay safe. Be kind to one another. That doesn't make sense. If I don't see you at the next one, stay safe. Be kind to one another, and I'll see you at the next one. That doesn't make sense.
Makes sense to me.
No. So I will be back tomorrow evening. There's a bit of a surprise. I will be back Thursday for a show. And if I don't see you at those shows, be safe, be kind to one another, and I'll see you at the next one. Cheers.
Cheers.